The Gulf of Mexico. We see it as an engine, a sprawling web of steel and fire, a monument to human dominance over nature. We drill deep into the planet's dark crust, searching for the pressurized ghosts of ancient life, the black blood that powers our entire civilization. We look at this place, and we see power. We see progress. We see the complex, humming machinery of our fragile economic reality. But we are blind. We are blind to what this place truly represents. We have built our castles of industry on top of a tomb, because this is not a geographical feature. It is a scar. It is the largest, most significant, and most violent wound on the face of our planet. This is ground zero. 66 million years ago, in a single, catastrophic moment, the 160 million year reign of the dinosaurs was annihilated. The case, science tells us, is closed. A rogue asteroid, 7 miles wide, struck the Earth by random chance, and the world was forever changed. But this is a dangerously simple story. It is a children's story, told to make us feel safe. The official narrative is a blockbuster film of fire and tsunamis. But the real story, the zero-point lore, is far stranger, more precise, and more terrifying. The evidence, hidden deep within the rock cores pulled from that 2016 expedition, doesn't just tell us what happened. It reveals a chilling mechanism. It proves that the Earth was not just hit, it was interrogated, it was sterilized, and that the death of the dinosaurs was not an accident. It was a selection, a test, a great filter that reset the entire planetary experiment, and in doing so, created the very vacuum that allowed for us to exist. The mystery of the Gulf of Mexico is not about what died there. It's about what was born, screaming, from the ashes. For decades, the crime scene was cold. All across the planet, from the cliffs of Italy to the Badlands of Montana, geologists found the same strange clue: a thin, dark layer of sediment, no thicker than a human hand, buried deep within the stone. They called it the Cretaceous-Paleogene boundary, the KPG boundary. Below this line, the world was a thriving reptilian paradise. The rock was filled with the fossils of titans. Above this line, silence. An eerie, profound emptiness. 75% of all life on Earth, gone, wiped from the geological record. This black line was a tombstone for a lost world. In 1980, the Alvarez team analyzed it. They were looking for common elements. Instead, they found something that should not have been there. Iridium. Iridium is an element forged not in the gentle processes of Earth, but in the hearts of dying stars. It is vanishingly rare on our planet's surface, as most of it sank to the core billions of years ago. But it is abundant. In asteroids, the amount of iridium in that single, thin layer suggested the unthinkable. A 7-mile-wide object from deep space had struck the Earth and been vaporized, spreading its elemental dust across the entire globe. This was scientific heresy. The establishment, at the time, was dominated by gradualism, the belief that all change is slow, that extinctions happen over millions of years. The Alvarez hypothesis proposed the exact opposite: a single, terrible day of cosmic violence. For a decade, the theory was ridiculed. There was one missing piece of evidence. If an object that large had struck the Earth, where was the crater? The clue, it turned out, was not in the Earth. It was the Earth. It was hidden in plain sight, mistaken for simple geology. Geologists scanning the Yucatan Peninsula for oil discovered a bizarre anomaly: a ghostly outline, a perfect semicircle of sinkholes, or cenotes, stretching for over 100 miles. The ancient Maya considered these sacred wells entrances to the underworld. They were more right than they knew. This ring of cenotes was the fractured, collapsed rim of an ancient, buried impact. The crater was so vast, it was invisible from the ground. It had been hidden by 66 million years of sediment, erosion, and jungle growth. The murder weapon had been found, but science demands proof. It demands we go to ground zero. In 2016, an international team did exactly that. They positioned a rig directly over the crater's peak ring. A peak ring is the rebound of molten rock, the splash that solidifies in the seconds after impact. It is the heart of the wound. They drilled for weeks, down, through thousands of feet of pale limestone, the sedimentary rock of time, the quiet accumulation of 66 million years of marine life. And then, they hit it. The drill bits screamed. The rock type changed instantly. They were no longer in sediment. They were in granite, a rock that should have been 6 miles deep in the planet's crust. This granite had been pulverized, blasted to the surface, and melted into its new form, all in a matter of seconds. The age of this shocked rock? 66.05 million years. The fingerprint of the killer was confirmed. The debate was over. The media celebrated. The case was closed. Science had confirmed its story, but they were wrong. They had only found the weapon. They hadn't understood how it truly worked. The real mystery wasn't what hit the Earth. It was where. The single most important fact of this entire event, the detail that elevates it from a mere disaster to a planetary reset mechanism, is not the asteroid. It is the location. And that location, that precise, unlucky coordinate on the globe, changed everything. To understand the mechanism, we must first understand the force. The data, taken from the drill cores and the original Draining the Ocean investigation, allows us to reconstruct this moment. The object was the size of Mount Everest. It was traveling at 40,000 miles per hour so fast, it would cross the Atlantic Ocean in 6 minutes. It did not hit the shallow sea, it vaporized it. The water didn't even have time to boil. It was obliterated by the compression wave in front of the asteroid, before the rock even touched the crust. In the first millisecond, the asteroid and the crust beneath it ceased to exist as matter. They became a superheated plasma, hotter than the surface of the sun. The energy released was not 10 billion tons of TNT. It was the equivalent of 10 billion Hiroshima-sized bombs, detonating at the same instant, in the same square mile. The impact tore a hole in the atmosphere and the crust, 120 miles wide and 20 miles deep. The peak ring of granite found by the 2016 team was formed in less than 90 seconds, as the planet's own mantle rebounded from the blow. The first kill mechanism was the blast itself. Anything within 600 miles from a Tyrannosaurus to a bacterium was instantly incinerated. The second kill mechanism was fire, on a global scale. The impact blasted tens of thousands of cubic miles of pulverized rock into orbit. This debris, known as ejecta, rained back down across the globe. As it re-entered the atmosphere, friction heated it into tiny beads of molten glass. This was not a meteor shower, it was a global grill. The entire sky glowed red hot. The atmosphere, worldwide, heated to the temperature of a pizza oven for several hours. Dry forests and plains ignited. A global firestorm began. The third kill mechanism was water. The ocean, recoiling from the blast, pulled back, only to return as a mega tsunami. A wave of water, perhaps half a mile high, that scrubbed the continents clean for hundreds of miles inland. It deposited the corpses of sea creatures on the mountains of a future Texas. This is the story we are all told. A story of fire and water, an apocalypse of noise and fury. But here is the secret the crater holds. This fiery spectacle, this biblical cataclysm, didn't kill the planet. This shock and awe campaign only killed the creatures in the wrong place at the wrong time. Life is resilient. Creatures in deep burrows or in the deep ocean would have survived this. The fire and flood were not the extinction event. The real killer, the one that sterilized the Earth and caused the 75% mass extinction, was silent, invisible, and it came after all the noise had faded. The universe is a game of probability. The asteroid could have struck anywhere. Had it struck the deep Pacific, 70% of the Earth's surface, the vast ocean would have absorbed and muffled the worst of the chemical effects. It would have been a terrible tsunami, but not a global killer. Had it struck most landmasses, it would have vaporized inert silicate rock. Destructive? Yes. Extinction level? Unlikely, but it did not. In a moment of terrible, cosmic precision, it struck one of the worst, most chemically volatile, and most unlucky places on the entire planet, a shallow sea, underlaid by thousands of feet of a rock called gypsum. We know it as sulfur. The 10 billion bomb explosion did not just throw up dirt. It vaporized over 100 billion tons of sulfur. This sulfur was blasted into the stratosphere, far above the clouds and the weather. There, it combined with water vapor. It did not create a cloud of soot that would rain out in a few months. It created a global shroud of sulfuric acid aerosols. It was a perfect mirror, a planetary sunblock. The sun vanished, not for a day, not for a week, but for a decade. This was the true ground zero. The mechanism of death was not fire. It was darkness. The planet, which had been a tropical greenhouse, was plunged into a nuclear winter. Computer models, based on the sulfur content found in the 2016 drill cores, show that the average global temperature plummeted by 47 degrees Fahrenheit, 26 degrees Celsius. The Great Reset began. First, photosynthesis stopped. The plankton in the oceans, the base of the entire global food chain, died within months. The oceans, absorbing the sulfur, became a toxic bath of acid. Then, the plants on land, in the freezing darkness, withered and died. The herbivores, the largest creatures on the planet, who required hundreds of pounds of food per day, starved first. The carnivores, like the T-Rex, starved last, picking over the frozen carcasses of a dead world. The Chicxulub crater is the evidence. The asteroid was just the trigger. The real weapon, the bullet that killed the dinosaurs, was the sulfur-rich rock of the Gulf of Mexico itself. The planet had been sterilized. This was the true Great Filter, a planet-wide extinction event, but 75% died, which means 25% lived. The impact didn't just kill, it selected. It wasn't a random lottery, it was a test. The rules of that test had been written in an instant by the laws of physics and chemistry, and that selection, that desperate, improbable survival against all odds, is the only reason you are here today. Who survives an apocalypse of total darkness, acid rain, and freezing temperatures? The rules for survival had been rewritten. The first and most important new rule: be small. A large body, like a T-Rex or a Brontosaurus, is a biological furnace that requires constant, massive amounts of fuel. In a world with no food, a large body was a death sentence. The second rule: be a generalist. If you were a specialized creature that only ate one type of fern, you died. The survivors ate anything: insects, worms, roots, fungi, the rotting carcasses of the dead. The third rule: be a borrower. The surface was a toxic, frozen hellscape. The survivors lived underground, in burrows, insulated from the worst of the cold and the acid rain. One creature fit this description perfectly. It was not a reptile. It was not a bird. It was a small, furry, warm-blooded mammal, our earliest known primate ancestor. While the dinosaurs, the 160 million-year-old undisputed rulers of the Earth, were culled by the billions, this tiny creature huddled in the dark, in its burrow, surviving on scraps. It wasn't the strongest. It wasn't the fastest. It was the most adaptable. The cataclysm wasn't just an ending. It was a violent beginning. The dinosaurs, for all their majesty, were a dynastic, dead end. They had filled every ecological niche, leaving no room for upstarts. The reset violently pruned the tree of life, allowing a new, experimental branch to flourish. The age of reptiles ended, and the age of mammals began. Our age. And here is the final, profound, and terrifying irony. The crude oil we now pump from that very cosmic scar, the fuel that powers our existence, our cars, our lights, our computers. What is it? It is the liquefied, compressed, and cooked remains of the trillions of plankton and organisms that were killed by that sulfur cloud. We are, in a very real, very direct sense, burning the ghosts of that 66 million-year-old apocalypse to power our world. The crater is not just a grave. It is a cradle. Our existence is a paradox. We are here only because the world ended. We are the children of the cataclysm, feasting on the remains of the old gods. The story of the Gulf of Mexico is the story of zero-point lore. It is the ultimate proof that our planet is not a fortress. It is a target. It is the definitive evidence that history is not a straight line of slow, gentle progress. It is a violent cycle of creation and destruction. The universe does not do gentle. It does resets. The Chicxulub crater is a monument. It is a warning, written in stone, 120 miles wide. It is a blueprint, a scientific, peer-reviewed, undeniable blueprint for how a planet is reset. If you believe that the universe writes its most important lessons in these scars, if you want to explore the forgotten lore that connects these ancient cycles to our own fragile destiny, then subscribe to 0 Point Lore. We are the channel that asks, what if the cataclysms of the past are the keys to our future? So, what is your theory? Was the Chicxulub impact a 1 in a billion random accident? A meaningless cosmic fluke? Or was it a necessary, cyclical mechanism, a filter that is built into the fabric of the cosmos to test, to clear, and to reset life? Let us know your theory in the comments below. The crater is not just a memory. It is a blueprint. The universe has reset our planet before, and the great, grinding cycles of the cosmos are indifferent to the civilizations built upon them. The only question is, when the next test begins, will we have learned anything from the scar it left behind?